Hi, my name is Jeanne Mayo, and I've had the privilege of being a youth and young adult leadership coach for lots of great years. Hey, I've grown youth ministries that started with handfuls and then had the privilege of growing them to 1,000 students every week. And I'm still a local youth pastor at my current amazing church here in the Atlanta area. I'm also the founder and president of a nonprofit, Youth Leaders Coach, and a mentoring venue I've hosted in our home for the past 15 years and counting, called The Cadre. So wow, join me for these 3 coaching sessions together. I'm calling it Crash Course to High Impact Youth and Young Adult Ministry. So let's have some fun growing together. Emerson said, "The years will teach you what the days will never know." So with your permission, let my years of working with teenagers and young adults do a little teaching, a little coaching for these sessions together. I want to start by unpacking what I think are 4 of the most important ingredients in growing an unforgettable and hell-defying youth and young adult ministry, both in spiritual impact and in numerical impact. So I'm actually calling this first coaching session together the Big 4. I think that high impact youth and young adult ministry comes from 4 repeating focuses in both your personal relationships and in your verbal communication moments from up front. And I believe that Jesus has hardwired today's emerging culture to need all 4 of them as they move towards spiritual growth, emotional maturity, and wholeness. So come on, let's look at them and see if we can train ourselves to intentionally focus on these 4. Now, let me give you a quote describing youth and young adult culture. "Today's teenagers and university students are shamelessly into themselves. They dress and behave in a manner which is often unseemly at best. They have little serious interest in academics or other pursuits of self-discipline. Their relationships with those of the opposite sex are both immodest and often unthinkable," end quote. Now, I think lots of us would agree that the words that I just read really pretty accurately describe today's youth and young adult culture. At least I know I sure would agree with that. But let me share with you a mind-blowing awareness. This quote came from a philosopher named Aristophanes. Try spelling that one in kindergarten, who lived over 100 years before Christ was even born. So here's my point. Though countless trends and facts change almost hourly, we all know that in today's culture, there are certain ground zero aspects about youth and young adult that never change. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about exploring the 4 that I think are primary in their influence over effective discipleship. Whether it's in discipleship attempts from, several decades ago or from yesterday, I found that Jesus really has made teenagers and young adults respond to and need all 4 of these. So let's go after them. But I want you to be able to go after them very intentionally. Number 1, a sense of destiny. So much more than just a cool motivational poster. From a sociological viewpoint, we are pastoring the first generation growing up with the constant subliminal reminder that there may not be a future for anyone, anywhere, forever. And so the consequence of this is pretty obvious. And we deal with it every day that we're up close to kids or young adults. The number 1 addiction of today's youth and young adult culture is often fantasy. Not everybody loves a hero. but we all love somebody who makes us feel like a hero. And so, you know what, it's a lot easier to get that feeling in imagination than in reality sometimes. So here's the deal. You be intentional about giving them purpose and a sense of destiny for their now, not just their long-term future. Mordecai was such a powerful youth leader. When he looked at Esther and he said, Esther 4:4, we all know it, who knows, my friend, but that you have come into the kingdom for such a time as this. Wow. Destiny, purpose. Why behind the what? Listen, remember that vision is always going to be the greatest deterrent to sin and compromise. I remember many years ago when I was giving my heart and life to a young man who was a senior in high school. His big goal in life was playing pro football, and he was stinking good. Went to Hononegah High School. I showed up at lots of football games, maybe the fourth quarter, trying to bluff him that I'd been there the whole time, but I was there. And so I remember one time after the game, we were talking, and I said to him finally, Nick, you are so much bigger in your destiny than football. And that Nick, who attended Hononegah High School, is now a pastor on staff at one of the largest churches in America because purpose and destiny motivated him further. So when you communicate publicly or personally, hey, talk about their impact tomorrow, not several years from now. Their impact tomorrow at school or next week in their youth and young adult ministry, if they invite some people. Don't make destiny just a thing that's talked about like years from now. You know, what are some possible avenues for creating that sense of destiny in your ministry? And you know them. Let me just remind you. Challenging them to host campus clubs, or fanning positive influence over their friends at school, or hosting an outreach-oriented service and asking them to bring some friends with them and invite them, or something like being a good listener to somebody who's hurting, going on a missions trip, you know, local or overseas, or financially raising the funds to help another missionary, helping a non-believer family member in some practical way. The list is limitless. Just give them some worthwhile, livable, simple purposes that help define their now. That's how destiny becomes more than a trite cliche, but an exciting reality. Number 2, secondly, in this crash course for high-impact youth ministry, give them not only a sense of destiny, but a sense of childhood. And you heard me right. Let me give to you another quote from a contemporary sociologist. He said, we dress our kids in miniature adult costumes with designer labels. We expose them to gratuitous sex and violence. And we also expect them to cope with an increasingly tough social environment of divorce, single parenthood, changing sexual values, blah, de blah, de blah. So what's the result? Teenagers and young adults easily feel betrayed by a society that's told them, grow up fast, without really ever letting them be kids and enjoy a real childhood. So what's the consequence for this? You see it every time you're around them for a little bit. Childhood stuff, fun, just plain old fun appeals to them. Well, shoot, that appeals to me, doesn't it? To all of us, but it's universal. When you ask teenagers or young adults, why don't you go to your church youth group, young adult group, or even church, the most common answer, 2 words, you can say it with me right wherever you are, it's boring. And no offense, but we all think that sometimes too. So that's why in the recorded youth and young adult messages that I put on the website, I often real intentionally try to use some fun, some humor, audience engagement skits, short dramas, video clips, just anything to break up the pattern and make it not boring. And we give it all to you on JeanneMayo.com. Because you see, and please get this, leaders, you don't have to be funny to be good in youth ministry. Not all of us are stand-up comedians or funny, but we can all choose to be fun. So this isn't a commercial about being a ministry that majors on fun and games, but this is a commercial for being a ministry that majors on doing life together and regular clean fun, whether it's a 60-second laugh, a skit in the middle of your talk, or hanging out with some of them while they tell you over a Taco Bell special their latest adventure. Yeah, you heard about it. It was me a few months ago who was crowd surfing, and a billion people posted it on Instagram. But truth is, I take pride in the fact that many of the kids and young adults want me to be at their parties because they think I make their parties more fun. And remember, fun is not so much an activity, but it's an attitude. So smile, for heaven's sakes, even when you've had a rotten day. Don't be somebody you're not, but come on, ramp it up with some energy in your interactions when you're around them. And I can just hear some of you going, that's phony. No, you're really wrong. Choosing to be fun or joyful is not phony. It is just being other-centered enough, giving away emotional warmth on purpose enough that other people consistently, especially youth and young adults, want to be around you. If I laugh with them when they're laughing, they'll be much more likely to be serious with me when I want them to be serious. And thirdly, in our crash course, besides giving them a sense of destiny and a sense of childhood fun, obviously, be intentional about also giving them a sense of militancy. Why? Gosh, because they have an inborn need to be militant for something, to leave it all on the field for something. That's instinctively why good football players at the local high schools and universities become so popular around. You know, every Friday night we show up and we watch those guys be militant about something that matters to them, football, and we respect that. But sadly, lots of times in ministry, we don't give today's youth and young adult culture a cause that's bigger than themselves, that's bigger than football, a cause they can be militant about. I mean, let's be real. Some of the biggest causes of this emerging generation are motivational things like go green and save the whales. And those little commercials where the dog and the smulchy music behind it, and they're saying send in money so these dogs don't die. Listen, all those are great. So I'm not saying any of those are wrong, but I think we've got to understand why the social justice movement has found such a loud voice in today's culture. Things like sex trafficking, children, women, whoever, because all of us need a cause we can be militant about, that we feel like we can make a difference on. Youth was not created for pleasure. I think it was created for heroism. I love 2 Samuel 24:24. It's one of my life verses. I got a few too many, so I can't just tell you one. But it really does reflect my militant side. David said, I will not offer to the Lord that which costs me nothing. Gosh, big deal. So again, remember what I said earlier, the greatest deterrent to sin is often vision. So get the people in your ministry off the bench. You'll hear in some of my messages, I'm trying to inspire our gang to bring friends to an outreach we're hosting, or I'm encouraging them to have the guts to try a campus club, or to be part of a prayer focus for an upcoming retreat that we're going to host, whatever it is. Maybe it's just a missions trip, local or overseas. It really doesn't matter. Whatever, I just know I've got to give them something to care deeply about. Something that's reachable that they can fight for. Because please hear me, this is such a big deal, leaders. If you don't, hell will use their boredom to point them in directions you probably don't want them to head. So if you don't give them a cause, something to be militant about, they will become their own cause. And then last of all, number 4, in these intentional senses, a sense of destiny, a sense of childhood, a sense of militancy, and this one, last of all, a sense of family. And if I could communicate with you on only one of these, this would be the one I'd choose. Wouldn't even go up for grabs. Take that sense of family to heart in a healthy way, not weird, not overdone. And I almost think you can mess up a lot of other stuff, but if you love Jesus and you try to create without being overdoing a sense of family, you almost can't fail. I love Romans 8:15. It's a prophecy about the times and the seasons that we're living in now. And it reads simply, you have received a spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. That's a big deal. Family, really a signature of what the Holy Spirit wants to bring to this era. So what's family? Well, look, don't make this too tough. It's doing life together. It's laughing together. It's crying together. It's praying together. It's giving non-glamorous, non-conditional, authentic friendship and sometimes love to each other, the kind that is painfully missing in a lot of homes these days. If you listen to some of my messages, you'll hear me make lots of statements in my messages at JeanneMayo.com, not in a weird, overdone, cheesy way, but just because I know what a huge deal this family deal is. And I do it both on and off the platform. Oh, around our place, I'm mom, But no matter what they call you, no matter what your age is, you can be a spiritual big brother, big sister, adopted spiritual mom or dad. Don't get hung up on titles. Just know the sense of what you want to communicate. I often say to leaders, listen, go home, shut down your youth group, and 5 minutes later, open up a youth family. 1 Corinthians 4:15, golly, I've read it so often. Paul is saying to the guys in the Corinthians church, you have countless instructors in the faith. And that's us. There are countless preachers. All the list is long. You have countless instructors in the faith, but not many fathers. Yet through Christ, Paul says, I have begotten you through the gospel. I often say, you're never going to deeply understand much of today's emerging youth and young adult culture until you see them through the eyes of someone looking for a dad. Let me give you some simple, intentional ways to create a sense of family. First of all, talk family. And again, don't be overdone. Girls, we can go too far out on that one. But just especially powerful when a guy is doing it as well. Number 2, prioritize small groups. And I've got a lot of training on that because then you can grow a youth group to 1,000 or several hundred and still have it feel family. Number 3, occasionally eat together. Just recently at the end of the youth service, we did something dumb. It was a fun night. We needed to laugh together. And so I passed out ice cream sandwiches in the lobby at the end of the youth service and cranked on some music. And gosh, it changed the tenor. Where two or more are gathered together in his name, there is food. At least most of the time. Number 4, get away from church property sometimes. I mean, retreats, trips, outings, take them with you on some errands, football games, basketball games, whatever. Number 5, create simple traditions. Number 6, and I wish I could talk about all of these, go through great times together and the painful ones. Last night, I was with somebody key on our team whose younger 14-year-old sister took her life. And I couldn't help but think of C.S. Lewis's immortal words. God whispers in the good times, but he shouts in pain. How true that is. He did some shouting last night, and he will do some shouting when you create family during tough times as well. So let me summarize. What are the big 4 that I'm telling you? May not sound profound, but they are so important in creating and reaching and impacting today's youth and young adult culture. Being intentional, not just hoping for a sense of destiny, a sense of childhood, fun, a sense of militancy, a cause, and a sense of family. Be intentional about these big 4, and you are a long way down the track for creating an unforgettable, life-changing ministry, whether it's quite large or quite small. Again, the one I want you to most hear, creating a sense of family. We've already given you all the specifics. Listen more than you talk, create some fun rituals, all of that stuff. But sometimes the way you create family is to go to the furnace together. Let me explain. During the Nazi death camp era, a family named the Rosenbergs, and this really occurred, feared for their youngest son's life. David, that youngest son, was crippled. And they knew that the cruel Nazi soldiers would soon send him to the furnaces because the young man could accomplish so little work in the work camp. And the dreaded day finally came when Mr. Rosenberg, the dad, came back to the shelter where they were reunited. And he found his oldest son in the corner. His name was Solomon, weeping uncontrollably. And Solomon finally said, "Father, they took David away today. They took him away." "But where's your mother, Solomon?" Mr. Rosenberg shouted. "She was strong. She was in great health. Where did she go?" And Solomon paused, struggling to speak. And finally he said, "Today when the guards came after David, he was very afraid. He knew where they were really taking him. So he started to cry. Mama," she pushed through the crowd, the soldiers, and put her arms around him. And I heard her say to him, "Don't be afraid, David. Wherever they're taking you, Mama will go there with you. And whatever happens, Mother will hold you tight." Powerful words, don't you think? Words I got to live last night. Not always over something big. I've cried with more kids just because they got dumped in a relationship. You create family by caring about what they care about. So thanks, for real, for letting me hang out with you a few minutes today. Let's get together in part 2 of this crash course. I'm entitling it, get this one, Changing Lives 101. And that's code language for how in the world do you actually disciple a student or young adult? I mean, everybody gives me all this double talk and this rhetoric and all of these long series, but let my years of experience boil down to a few pragmatic essentials in our next coaching block that are going to tell you how you make discipleship more than a nice little term, but a reality. So wrapping up coaching session number 1, if you want to leave a hell-defying impact for real on teenagers, young adults, it is not as complicated as you probably think. Intentionally, I know I keep saying that word, but it's got to be intentional. Cultivate a sense of destiny, a sense of childhood, a sense of militancy, and most importantly, a sense of family. And then, my friends, when the furnaces come in life, you be sure you've earned a right to hold their hearts very, very tight.